Sanjay is there. I wish this from 23 passed out. I hope many students to be in Microsoft, Yahoo, Google, whatever it is your dream is to be. With this, really, I'm very happy to welcome Sanjay to this alumni meet. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. With this, I request Ms. Denika from BTech CSE final year to deliver the guest introduction.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Denika from BTech CSE final year. I extend my warm welcome to Mr. Sanjay Simhadri. We welcome you, sir. Mr. Sanjay is a reputed alumni of our college who is a 2018 pass out. He is currently working in Microsoft as a project manager. The role is to manage a huge portfolio of projects spread across different time zones. He has also worked under the job title Azure Devops Engineer from December 2019 to March 2021. He can perform in-depth troubleshooting in Azure technologies, TFS, IaaS, SQL Server, Windows, etc. He has joined Microsoft on contract basis from Harman as an Azure DevOps technical support engineer, quickly laddered up for a full-time position at Microsoft. He has gained SME level knowledge on Azure DevOps and TFS upgrades, configuring CI/CD pipelines, YAML pipelines, branch policies, version control, XML process, template customizations, TFS data, migration to cloud, etc. His major certifications include Microsoft Certified Azure Fundamentals AZ900, DevOps Support Specialist issued by Microsoft. We are glad to have you here, sir.
Thank you, Denika. Now I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Sanjay Simhadri. Sir.
Thanks, everyone. That was really a warm welcome, and thank you all. Actually, I don't have what to say, but thank you. So, hello, everyone, and as you know, my name is Sanjay. I just want to give a quick introduction from myself. So, I've been part of MGR from 2014 to 2018, and once I passed out, I directly joined Microsoft through contract. So yes, Microsoft will have third-party companies where you can join them, and from the day you join them, you will be working under Microsoft. So my contract was for 18 months, that is 1.5 years. During the time while I was working on the contract and with my contributions, they thought I will be a good fit, and they converted me into a full-time position at Microsoft. So from then I was a part of Microsoft officially, and then it's been almost 4.5 years since I joined Microsoft, and I've been performing various roles. And currently I'm doing a project as a project manager. And while we go through the course, I'll let you know what I'm doing and etc. So meanwhile, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to post in the chat, or you can unmute and keep on asking the questions. It's fine. I like to have an interactive session. So without further delay, I'll get the presentation and I'll go through the content of today. Before I go that, I'll pause for a minute, and if anyone has any questions or anything, feel free to unmute and we'll address them first before we start the session. Okay, so let me share my screen and we'll go to the presentation. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Can anyone confirm? Okay. Sorry, I didn't get any confirmation. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible, sir.
Okay. In today's session, I'll talk about Azure and Azure DevOps and basics to Azure DevOps. So, this Azure and Azure DevOps, to be honest, it's a very vast topic. So it's hard to cover in some time, but I'll give you a basic highlight of what these two are and how the technology is going on and what all options you have with Azure and the DevOps that we have. So we'll start with first thing, what is Azure? So anyone know what is Azure, or if you have any basic idea of what Azure is? Okay, so I'll tell what Azure is. Azure is nothing but Microsoft's cloud solution, cloud computing platform. So why do we need cloud computing platform? Let's say now everything is in cloud. So whatever we are doing, even our WhatsApp or the data that we store, Google, everything we are storing in cloud. And all our web applications, even the websites or any website you use, everything has to be stored somewhere. And the data that you use, somewhere it has to be stored. And all this, whatever these these are there, all these technologies combined together on a single platform is Azure. So any cloud solution or anything that you're looking over cloud, even storage or computing or analysis or any task, that we'll find in Azure. So how many applications are there on Azure? We have more than 2 million apps and websites on Azure. So it's like almost 20 lakh applications and various sites and various things are there on Azure. So that's why it's a booming technology, and we have a lot of work or a lot of opportunities on Azure. It's not just the cloud platform. You have n number of whatever you ask, you name it, and they have it. So all these technologies are there in Azure. That's why it is booming, and we have. So this is just a slide once. Later I'll go and I'll show you Azure website and how it looks. So that's what is Azure, and we'll go in depth as we go on. And now I'll start with DevOps. So I've been an Azure DevOps engineer for almost 3.5 years, and even I'm continuing with DevOps. So what is DevOps? DevOps is nothing but development plus operations. So for example, let's say I want to develop a web application. I want to host a website. How you do that? You go through, I think we already read about software development lifecycle. It's there in our computer science courses, and everyone might have known what software development lifecycle is. So what we do is we have a development lifecycle to develop these applications. But is development only enough? Do you think only coding is the thing to develop? No, we have a lot of other opportunities apart from coding. So I know a lot of people might have this misconception that coding is the only way we will get jobs. No, and trust me, from past 5 years, I haven't written a single word of code so far. Because it's not just code, but we have more than, out of 100% of development lifecycle, we have only 20% of the coding, but we do have other 80% of operations that we need to do. For example, I want to develop a website. I developed a website, which is writing the code, but we do have to execute that website. We need to build that website. We need to check the artifacts. We need to deploy that website. Before that, we need to do different types of testing. All this, and once you deploy, you have to manage that applications, which is an admin task. All this has different types of technologies involved. So which does not involve coding, but it do involve other scripting languages. I think you all might have heard about PowerShell or command line that we use. Those are very much used in develop operations side of this. So combining these two, DevOps, development plus operations, is DevOps. So DevOps is, first thing, DevOps is not a technology. It's not a technology that you use. It's a combination of technologies. The culture of using this is just we call as DevOps. So everyone, if someone says I'm using DevOps, yes, they might be, because if you're using any of that DevOps tool, you're called as a DevOps engineer. So if you're outside in the market, there is a huge demand for DevOps engineer. Why that demand? I'll just tell in this a video, but I think that will take time. Now, for example, have you ever heard of waterfall method? I think it's already there. But what we do in a waterfall method is, first we'll design. First, I want to develop an application. First, I will design that application. This is what I want. So we'll capture the requirements from the customer. We'll, based on that requirements, we'll create a design. And post that, we'll go to the code. And then we'll test and we'll deploy. But in a waterfall method, we cannot go back. That's one by one step process. It's only one way. But in Agile, what we do is, first we'll design, we'll code that, and we'll test it. What we do is, the bigger chunk we divide into smaller parts. So that we call it as sprints. So every sprint will be of 2 weeks or 3 weeks based on how you decide. And for 2 weeks, you'll code it, you'll give a demo to your resources or customer, and then you will test that application, the piece of code that you have developed. And based on that output, again, you go for the coding, again, you test. So post everything, then you do the deployment. That's the agile methodology. But what is DevOps? DevOps is even much faster. It breaks into much further chunk. We will design, I'll code, test, and deploy. Again, I'll code, test, and deploy. The deployment keeps on continuous. So deployment never ends in an DevOps technology. Never ends in the sense when the application is done, then only it ends. I think someone has raised a hand. Yes, you can unmute and talk. I was not able to see the screen. Rahul, is it? So I'll continue. So in DevOps, we will keep on continuing. And once we reach, is someone talking? Hello? Okay. So in DevOps, what happens is we can keep on continuously until I reach some point. So for example, let me say I have a project where we are in sprint 37. That means our project, each sprint carries 3 weeks. So that means this project is going on almost for past 1.5 years. Since the time I joined, this project is keep on going on. So what's happening is we'll develop a solution, we'll go to the customer, we'll show this solution, and based on their requirements, we'll start another sprint. So this keeps on going on. So that's why if you see in the beginning, the symbol for DevOps is infinity. It keeps on going. But if we keep on going like this, don't we have an endpoint? Yes, usually we do, because if we start with a requirement, once it is met, then the cycle ends there. But there is always a chance for improvement. That's why it again continues. So it's based on the customer and the product. Now, once, let's say I developed a web application, I get some feedback. You release another update. This is what we get phone updates, right? A lot of our apps, we keep on getting updates, because whenever you see there is an issue or something, we report that. And they work on it. They design a solution for it, and again they redeploy, which is an update that we see in our phones or in Windows or any software or any website. So this is what is DevOps. So if you notice, everywhere we are using the DevOps methodologies. So this is just a methodology or the culture they follow. Again, it's not a technology. Practicing of this continuously is nothing but the DevOps methodology. Any questions so far? If yes, please unmute and you can shoot the question. Okay, fair enough. Now we'll start with Azure DevOps. So what is Azure DevOps? Now, as I said, DevOps is a very big platform of so many tasks. We have like so many tasks that are available in the market. All these tasks that I highlighted on the screen are not even Microsoft. These all tasks are various other companies. Let's say I'm a project manager. Primarily, what I want to see is how much of my work completed, who is doing what task, are there any bugs in my project, is my testing done, etc. And is the developer completed the code? So I do want to see the tracking. I want to see the reports, which is very good with Power BI, or to plan and track, we can go with Jira or Eclipse. These are some outside tasks that are available, outside applications. And once to to write the code. We have Eclipse or Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code is there, and we do have different languages or GitHub that we can use to develop the code. To build, we have GitHub and we have Selenium and a lot of other things. Jenkins is also a very good tool that is used in market for building the application. And we have testing tools and we have deployment tools and we have again monitoring at these tools. But there are so many tools that are in the market. So if I am a project manager, I will have access to one tool. I do need license to that. And others need other tools which need license, which is of very high cost and everything. So in order to combine all this, that's the Microsoft Azure DevOps. So on Azure, they created an application called Devops, which is a combination of all this. You can do each and every aspect of development, deployment, build, release, whatever you want in Azure DevOps. It's customizable. It's just a software as a solution, because software as a solution means you don't have to go and set up anything. You just go there like a website, login, and you do your work. So that's why Azure DevOps is one of the leading platform in the world. This has been a huge growth, and it is one of the biggest success that Microsoft has ever seen. And we do have AWS from Amazon, who is also doing the same thing. And we also have various other tasks, but Amazon, AWS, and Azure DevOps are the leading DevOps platforms tools in the world so far. These are at top one and top two. So now I'll give you a demo of how the tool looks, how we go through, and in the coming slides. Meanwhile, if anyone has any doubts, again, please let me know. So I think this slide is already something we covered. Now, instead of the presentation, I'll directly go to the demo. Okay. So this is how an Azure website looks. Okay, let me know if again people you are able to see my screen. It should be showing up on Microsoft Azure now.
Yes, sir, we are able to see.
Perfect. So this is how Microsoft Azure website looks. So this is how you can find this link in portal.azure.com, and you have a lot of tools. So for example, if I go to my marketplace, it's like our Google Play Store where we go and download the app. So based on what you want. For example, I want to set up VMs. I want virtual machines. Let's think virtual machines. So I can go and create a number of virtual machines I do want. And for example, let's say I'm having a lot of people, let's say take an example of class only. We have in our class, we have like around 60 students. I can't create one by one virtual machines and do this. So what we do need in this case, we have Dev Test Lab. What it does is I can create n number of virtual machines in a single go, and each virtual machine will use a different system, or for students a different configuration is needed. If something is needed, we can do it. And one more advantage is it's UI. You can do it with multiple clicks and how much you want. So like this, that's why we do have 20 lakh applications. Whatever requirement we do have a solution for that on Azure. You can keep on using. For example, now Microsoft has almost like more than 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs employees worldwide, let's say, just an example. Now, how can I manage these many users? Let's say I don't want some users to access different resources. Some I don't want to use a different thing. I can manage them through the users in Azure. Now, any company you join, how resources they manage the users is through Azure and through the user management. This is also something we can do. I Dinesh Kumar raised hand. Dinesh, if you have some question, yes, feel free to unmute and ask. Okay. And so, for example, now, how do we pay for all this? Let's say I'm using these resources. So how will I charge? There's something called pay as you go, which is one of the again features that Microsoft Azure is providing, that you will pay for those things as and when you use them. For example, let's say virtual machine is turned on, only for the time that is on, you will be paying that. You won't keep on paying for as long as you have the virtual machine. So these are certain tasks that you have. And we do have a lot of things. As I said, it has a complete lot of information in this. So what I will do is I have a deck that is prepared completely with this, contains almost 30 pages with every link that will be helpful for you. You can use, I'll share you that across, that has complete links and training and everything in that. You can refer to that. Now I'll go in depth about Azure Devops. So one of the apps within Azure. So this is what I'll touch base today. Now we have Azure Devops. Under that, this is the main page look. I do have so many projects under that. This is something that I created for myself. This is my test environment. So this the organization name is Test for Customer. So I'll let you know how this works. For example, let's see. How an organization structure looks like in Azure DevOps. So first, I will create my organization, which means let's take a simple example that Microsoft is an organization. So it's like a database complete. Now all my data will go and stay in the, save there in the backend. Now project is a segregation of what task I am working on. Let's take within Microsoft, I want to develop a web application as well as a mobile application. For mobile application, I'll create a different project. For web application, I can create a different project. Or else, let's say within the web, I created a project for web application. Now, some will be working on the UI. Some team members will be working on development. Some will be working on different areas. So we'll again create those teams, different teams, where each team will have access to only those particular resources. So one of the major challenge while handling multiple people is with their access level. Let's say I don't want someone to access particular resources. I want someone to have access particular resources. All this will be a huge challenge when you're managing, let's say 500, 600 people at the same time. So this is where one of the biggest advantage with your DevOps is the permissions that you get with that. Now let's say Azure for Customers is like my organization. These are the projects that I created within that. So I'll take you to one of the project and then I'll give you a demo. So go to the video session that I just created for the demo purpose. So this is how you look at an overall project dashboard. So obviously this doesn't contain much information. Let me take another project which might have. Okay, nothing has. Me go to a different. Okay, anyways. With artificial psychometry, but okay, it's fine. I'll go with this as well. Now, if you see, this is my overview summary of my project. So generally what we do is we'll have a project description. What is this project about? Let's say this is about a development or something that we use. Now post that, in here only you will be able to see the number of work items you created. So what's a work item? Let's say I have a task that everyone is performing. we do create a work item. A work item is nothing but the work that you have to do. Now let's see. I have few work items here, and we do have multiple type of work items that we create in a software life cycle. Now, for example, let's say I'm starting a new project. So I do need what I should create. First, I don't know where I should start with. So in that case, first thing you'll capture is an user story or a requirement. You obviously can create new fields, which I haven't created, but that is the starting point. If you want to start something, then you will go with either what type of work item that you do need. So let's this project. So there's let's take now this has lot of features and lot of work item. Let's say I want to create a story. What does an user story or a requirement create? You will capture the detailed requirement of what you want to develop. Now, let's say I want to develop an UI page with login page, simple login page. So you'll capture a detailed description where all the requirement you have. Then you should have an acceptance criteria. Now you took the requirement, developed it. Why should I accept the solution? So you should have certain acceptance criteria in the beginning. So that's how everywhere in the development it works, that you should have certain set of acceptance criteria where, okay, if I develop this, I'll accept this solution. Such things we do have to in a detailed information. And this is customizable. The work item, how you look and how it is, everything is very well customizable. I can have multiple number of descriptions, and based on the projects and the methodologies I follow. I'll create this and I'll have multiple, let's say, I'll create. And this is my user story. Let's say I want to assign it to some of my resources. So I want Mangaldeepa to do this task. Assign it to her. She can see this. It's like a ticket. She can see that under her Azure Devops. When she log in, she will be able to see under her board, okay, this is the work that I have been assigned for today. So that's the progress. So currently that she has to accept that. And we have multiple states. Once she's working on it, or once this is resolved, she'll move to resolved or closed, and I'll be able to track that through a report. So similar way, you can create not just this work item, we will have so many work item types. Let's say a tester tests the application, whatever you have developed, and he found a bug. So immediately he'll create a bug work item and he will assign to the developer who has created that test, who has created that particular solution. And he will also put the priority of that bug. Is it one means it's very critical or very low, or is it? And what is the severity? Based on this, every day we'll go to the backlog. Backlog is nothing but my board or whatever I want. Let's say these are the backlogs, or these are feature 1, feature 2 that I wanted to develop in the upcoming days. So I'll have, say, let's say my sprint 2 starts from 2 weeks later. So all these are tagged to sprint 2. That means I want to develop these features or these user stories in my upcoming sprint. So this is the backlog. So once we begin my project only, we'll have segregated the task based on which sprint I want to develop. And you will have a date assigned to that. And within this date, I have to complete those tasks. So these are a lot of things. Now let's say we can do sprint wise and segregate the sprints and create the sprints in this. So that's one thing. And during queries, I can query what all the options I do have. It's like, I think it's a very simple query. For example, I want work items with user stories. You can just come and create based on the filters you want. So this helps if you say it's from a project management perspective. This is all something I want to do it from a project management perspective. I can create multiple set of dashboards, and let's say how many user stories are still in new state for me, how many are closed. Okay, one is active, which I think we did just now. So like this, I can create multiple charts. Again, we can see that chart details here. And as I said, it is very much helpful for a project manager, because now let's say I want to see what all the metrics that my currently build is doing on. How is my code being developed and how we are doing the build. So that I can see this here. And yeah, so that is from the board and work. Mostly the work and everything will be done by the project managers. I haven't gone into the details yet, but that's usually what we do. Clear? So far, any doubts? Or is it too overwhelming? Anyone? Okay, I'll take that as a no. And let's continue to the repos. Now, let's say I have developed a solution. I want to write a code. Do you think you're the only one who will be writing the code in that particular project? No, I'll have n number of people writing codes and writing features and working on different features and everything. So everyone, let's say, user one is writing a code and he's also doing the same code, and user two is also doing the same work on the same code. So if they both do upload their code, there will be a merge, there will be a conflict. I'll not be able to track code very well. I won't be able to track the changes very well. So that's where repositories comes into place. See, writing code is not just the part we do. We have to manage the code very well, which is a huge task. Trust me, they hire people just to manage code very well. They are not writing the code, they're just keeping the code. Let's say I have 1,000 people who are writing and working on the same repository. Repository is nothing but, consider it's a notebook where everyone is writing the code. Now, everyone is making the same changes. How will I be able to track what are the changes? What should I approve and how to do this? That is where they have branches, they have commits, they have pull requests. They do assign tags to their particular things, and they have a branching strategy. This is completely a bigger chunk of work that people do just to manage the strategy on how you want to maintain your repository. Trust me, it's not easy as it looks, because mine, I don't have any code anyways, but let's imagine I'll create a new branch. New branch is nothing but a copy of what I'm doing. Let's take, I'm developing a feature one. Okay, it is based on the master branch that I'm doing. And if you want to link any work items that you're, okay, let's link testful. So whatever the progress I do here, I'll be able to see that. Now, if you see all the code, whatever is in my master branch has come up. Now what I'll do is, let's take git ignore, I'll edit. And I do have to commit. So whatever changes I do, I will update a comment and this branch name. And if you want to link any work item, yes, I will link. And this is a new commit. New commit is nothing but the new change I made. So I have updated my code. Now what I do is I have to create a pull request. What is a pull request? Now let's say I made my changes, but this change will only be reflected to me. How will it go and show in an, in a centralized repository? When you have a repository, it is a centralized. So it is like the central of where you save every changes. But you cannot do all the changes in the central repository. We don't want to touch my master one. So we'll create a copy and we'll make the changes. Once changes are made to the code, what I do is I create a pull request. It's nothing but, again, a request that I create. So I create and I'll there are certain reviewers. So let's say I'll assign again Deepa and I'll put certain tags and I'll create. This goes for a review. Currently, this is my project. I'm admin, so I don't see. but some user is developing, automatically reviewers will be there. So now the reviewers will review this, and once they approve, it again directly doesn't go to the code. What it does is a build will be triggered. Once a build is triggered, and if the build is successful, then only it goes and merges into the master branch. So there is a huge structure that we follow before we merge any changes of code to the master branch. And whatever is in master branch, every 3 weeks, we build that and we deploy it to the worldwide. That's a high level strategy of coding. If you go, there are a lot of depth into that, and it's very interesting if you know how to manage. There will be a lot of conflicts. Currently, it's showing no much conflict. Obviously, there is nothing there to have a conflict, but a lot of conflicts are there, and a lot of issues comes up, and a lot of changes that you need to do. You can see all the changes and all, nothing much here, but you'll have more detailed view there. Okay. Now comes to the pipelines. I have a lot of pipelines here. So what is a pipeline? Pipeline is nothing but a place where I build the code that I have written so far. Now I have written the code. I have to build that. I want to bring that file into a exe format or to a web application or somewhere I can host on the web. So that is where you have pipelines in it. Let's take any pipeline here. Again, we have multiple type of pipeline. This is a pipeline where you are seeing in the UI format. Also, trust me, nobody, even me, for a UI one, it is easier. But when you are managing multiple pipelines, you always go with a code type. Let's take this. So automatic, like this. So as I said, it is not only coding that you do need. We do have a lot of other jobs. For example, if there are openings, let's say only out of 100, only 20 are for coding. Remaining 80 are for the operations or how you do it. There are codes, there are job openings for build engineers, deployment engineers who monitor the applications, and web engineers. All they do need is a different set of knowledge, not just the coding. So this is not a coding, this is just a scripting language. We have a lot of scripting languages, which it doesn't need a syntax and all. You do need to have a logic to that. So anyone who are very interested or in getting into a DevOps roles, I would suggest start with XML, or if you want, you can start with, most preferably if you want to get into Microsoft, start with PowerShell into Microsoft with an operational role. I mean, for a DevOps engineer, start with PowerShell and command lines. These are very, very helpful when you want to be a build engineer or a deployment engineer. Even Microsoft Azure, we have PowerShell inbuilt. Any task you do want to perform through UI, we can do that. And trust me, it is very easy when you have to do it through a command line. You can do a lot of number of tasks very easily. Now you can save this piece of code as a template. And whenever I want to build a new pipeline, instead of going through all the process, I can just use this piece of code and create thousands of pipelines at once. That's the advantage when you go with this particular scripting languages. And it's not just the YAML, you have multiple scripting languages available to set up the pipeline. Again, it's your call when you do that. But for learning purpose, I would suggest, rather than going through UI, go to the scripting language. You will have more understanding about what the function does and how it works in the backend as well, not just the UI part. So let's take this pipeline. Just give you an overview of how a pipeline looks like. I'm having issues. That's fine. I'll create a new pipeline. For now, I'll use a classic editor. I'll give my, now I want to build my master branch. And what type of technology is it? Is it a .NET application or ASP.NET? Or is it a Python or Xcode? And again, you will have a number, you name it and they have. And if anyone is familiar with Docker or Kubernetes, so what this is Docker is a container or an image. So whenever you want to request for a certain virtual machine or something, it automatically creates an image with the Docker. Image is nothing but a template. As we discussed earlier, like a piece of code, it uses that and customizes with the parameters you put in, and it creates then a running environment for you. It's very easier when you use Docker or containers in your application. So let's go with mine is an NPM application, so which means it should come with. It automatically gives certain tasks that are available based on the you're using. Now, agent specification, it's very complicated based on the target of framework you're using. Let's take, I am developing an application for Mac OS or Ubuntu, Windows. Based on that, you can select the pipeline you want to use. A pipeline is nothing but what it does is, again, the backend of this architecture is it uses Docker. So when I request for a pipeline, an image automatically creates a virtual machine where my agent runs and executes my code. So you're just giving the parameters, as I said, you will select those parameters. Based on that, it will create you a viable environment where it can you can deploy and run the application. Again, you can go to each task and give the information you want, and you can run this build. Once you run it, it will compile the code and it will drop your artifacts into the artifact tab. We have artifacts. What the output is, you can see in the output tab, or else you can see in the artifacts. Let's take another project. So this, if I go through, this is my first comment. My build is done. My build is successful. Let me show you the test. I have again, while building itself, we do the testing also. We imbibe test automatic. We have 3 types of test. Manual, which means you write a code like step by step, like a login page. Open the login page, go to this, go to that. You will write steps and you do perform that manually and update whether it's passed or wrong. But if you do an automated test, which is Selenium, and again for this you do need a coding language, knowledge on the coding part. Mostly it is used through Java. So if you do that testing, what happens is you'll automatically imbibe those testing within the pipeline while building itself. So I had one test and it is already passed while building the application. And my pass percentage is 100, and it took only 6 seconds to test my application. And if any bugs or something, it automatically comes up. Again, this is completely under a different concept of continuous integration and deployment. So again, like the symbol you see infinity, once you make the code and you commit, and automatically all this process starts without user intervention. Once you set up the process, you don't need anyone to intervene in it. It automatically says, okay, any issues, automatically it will go and create a bug. Any things, or if everything is success, right? Now it goes to the commit. Whatever changes I made, okay, now it done and merged to my master branch. This run is written and it is in the master branch. The first commit that I did. Now releases. Now my build is successful. So that means the application is done. Now the end customer also should update with the latest changes, right? Automatically, and a release is created. But again, the release failed, so it didn't deploy it. This is the code that I had, and if you see earlier, if you I think it was mentioned that I was also an SME in the troubleshooting. When you had an issue, this is the logs that we get. I go through the logs, I review it. This is just an overview. If you go for a detailed logging, it gives you a log of more than like pages of information. So we have to go through that completely and identify where the issue is and to resolve that. That's why we do have a separate complete jobs for the build and repository engineers. Any questions so far? If not, I'll go to the deployment part. Again, this might be a little overwhelming and rush because I'm giving a high-level overview. If you have to go in the depth, in this website is free of cost. If you are not multinational company, there won't be much of you are going to use that. So for first 5 users, it is free of cost. You can go there and check it and use it. And like me, I create test environment and I play around with it. It is success or failure, it's fine. You test it and then you will be able to learn much quicker. So I go, I explore, and I just I create random stuff, and there's a lot of help you get when you're doing this, because automatically for learning people and everything, you have a lot of videos online or YouTube and everything. For example, I don't know how a .NET application gets created. When I click on a pipeline, automatically certain tasks come up. And when you're writing the code, automatically it shows up information. Or else you can use Visual Studio, which is again Microsoft client, and you can integrate that with Azure Devops, and you can do that as well. So in this case, let's take in Visual Studio. I don't know anything. So in Visual Studio, if I go and select a project, it automatically creates everything and gives to you. And in Azure also, we have something called Devops Starter. I don't know how to create. I will just go to here and ask it to create an application. It will create everything for you and it will give you based on the requirements. Let's say I want a .NET project, and you can select ASP.NET, and this is whatever you need. If you give the permission, it will create an Azure DevOps application and some other things, and it will create a code and it will set up a pipeline as well as the release. If anyone is really interested to learn, you can check that out. I'll have a link in the PPT. You can refer it. It will be much helpful because everything is there. It automatically creates, and then you can keep on modifying to that and check how it works. And it's best to have a hands-on learning when you're learning new technologies. Okay, now I'll go to the release part. So release or deployment is nothing but how you release your product to the end customer or to the website. Let's say, let's take Amazon. I think everyone is using Amazon Prime or Amazon website, and they made new changes. So how will that new changes reflect? Can it directly, what are the new changes the coder wrote? You think I can directly deploy it? No, it has to go to multiple stages. First, a UAT testing, user testing has to be done. So where a bunch of testers go and test the environment. And then we go for a dev testing. Another in the development, first I think it's developer testing, then UAT. Then we go for the pre-production. It's not the production, we'll go with the pre-production. And then we'll do a production deployment. It has to go through multiple phases of deployment before it reaches to the end customer. Again, now let's say WhatsApp is something that everyone is keep on using, or something, a web application everyone keeps on using. Let's say Google search. Everyone uses Google search. Now I want to deploy my new changes. So when I want to deploy, there will be a downtime. Downtime means I have to stop my working application and deploy the new changes, which will take time based on the changes. It depends. Let's say, can I have a downtime? No, I cannot. You do need to have a strategy when you want to deploy that to the world. How can I do that? So do you know companies usually doesn't have single data center. It has so many data centers, and it will have a backup data center. If something goes up, backup will automatically start. And you know the downtime for that is less than 10 seconds. You won't even realize that. Even that is a very huge downtime, considering the companies will feel, because 10 seconds is a huge downtime for them. So they'll have multiple data centers, multiple regions where their data is hosted. And again, when they're doing the deployment, they won't do the deployment at once to all the world. First, they'll go through phases. They'll do a deployment in India, then they'll do a deployment in China. So then they'll do a deployment in Japan, then US. Like that, they'll go in an order. All regions will not see the same changes at once. Again, this is where when I'm telling from the Microsoft experience. When they do changes in other companies, it depends on the environment or the strategy they follow. So DevOps has multiple roles. One is like the build engineer and the release engineer. So you do have to have multiple strategies. It is all depends on the logic. Which logic are you implementing? And all this matters when you're doing a release. So when release, I integrate with my Azure. So in Azure, I am hosting my websites, all the websites that they are hosting. And this is how you do an environment and this chart. So that's with the deployment. And as I was saying regarding the test plans, you can create multiple test plans and do the testing part in this. I think I have one test plan. I don't have any so far. But you create a test plan and you will see the progress and everything on those test plans. Let's say now I have you ever noticed that there will be Amazon Prime Day sales and lot of day when there will be lot of users accessing their website, and sometimes the websites get blocked, it keeps on loading. Do you know why? Because of the load of the users. I think someone raised a hand, and we have any queries or questions? Okay. You know, how do they increase these things when you're doing Amazon Prime Day? How do you think they will do it? Anyone? How do they face the performance or challenges of that load? Okay, I'll give the answer. So this is something called performance testing. So what they do is they create some users in DLC based on the load. So again, this depends on the forecast, how many users they are going to target. And based on that, they have to increase number of hardware capabilities and everything. Let's say now my website is being hosted and it is spread across 4 virtual machines. So this is done through a load balancer where, let's say 4 requests come, the load balancer, what it does is it balances the load and it sends one request to 4 virtual machines. Like that, the number of requests it can attend, so it can give a faster response. That's how the load balancers do it. So they set up a very complex architect where they try to increase number of virtual machines. Let's say Prime Day sale is only for 2 days. I don't need, today I have 50 virtual machines where or website, 50 hardware stores where which the website is being hosted. Now through Prime Day sale, I want to increase that 50 to 150 more. So nearly 200 virtual machines. Absolutely, I can do it. But just for those 2 days, I can't purchase 150 and keep it. So that's where we have multiple applications that provide these features where you can increase your virtual machine dynamically. Now I can't keep and track how many users are coming and how to increase it. So this is again an automated process. Whenever there is a load, it automatically creates a new virtual machine with the same data. So it will be able to load balance those requests as well. And again, all this will be done within seconds. So that is how fast the cloud has been developed to. Now, all this can be only done when you have a solid plan to this. So when I said coding is 20% and remaining is 80%, lot of these things comes under to that 80% bracket. So those are the operational changes that we need to track. And it just doesn't happen with one technology. We do need to have a knowledge on various technologies and various platforms. So that is where lot of these things depend. So if you want to start your career in as a DevOps engineer, it doesn't have to be with Microsoft Azure or Azure DevOps. You can start with any tool. Even GitHub is one of the best booming things you can start with, or any other things that you feel those are required. You can start with those, and those will really help you when you want to start your career as a DevOps engineer. And trust me, there are so many openings with the DevOps engineer. And once you have experience in this and something with not experience, but some certificate or knowledge on this in your resume, you'll definitely get a call back for the interviews. And that is about high level of Azure DevOps. But now I think if we still have time, if you have any questions or anything or something, please feel free to unmute and ask. It does not only on the PPT or even anything regarding the job or how the interviews, how to crack anything that you think you have queries. Yes, feel free to ask. No questions? Nice.
No questions from your side, students? Whether you all have listened? Apurva. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, no questions from your side?
No, ma'am. Everything is good.
So the other way of escaping from the one. Okay, Sanjay.
I think that is a high level of that. So I'll share the presentation deck, which has a lot of information. Because of the interest of time, I was not able to cover. I'll share that across and have a lot of links and a lot of study materials that are very best. I choose some way of the best and I put it there. And again, in the PPT, you'll have a notes section where you have a lot of content and a lot of notes and some questions that you have. And if you have any doubts or something, yes, you can always drop me an email or let me know and I can help you out with that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir. We gained a lot of information on Azure Devops project execution methodology and many more topics. Thank you, sir. Now, for the vote of thanks, I would like to call Ms. Soumya from BTech CSE Final.
You cannot start video.
A very good morning to all. On behalf of all students and staff, I'm glad to be standing here to express my vote of thanks. A special thanks to our chief guest, Mr. Sanjay Simhadri, for accepting our invitation and for being here with us today. Your thoughts have truly inspired us, sir. I thank our HOD for always supporting and guiding us. I would also like to thank Syed sir, Amuda ma'am for their immense support. Our teachers, the superstars of today, always put me in a lot of effort and love into making each one of us good students and wonderful human beings. You have always been generous with your time when your students need you no matter what. Thank you, dear teachers. I would be failing in my duty if I did not thank my fellow students who have made this day possible. I would also like to thank each and every one of you for being here and making this day a wonderful and memorable one for our dear teachers. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, it's not. We are actually, our students are blessed to listen your emerging topic on Devops. Really, I feel bad they didn't ask any questions at all. Yes, they might have asked a question because in today trend, wherever we go, people are talking about Devops only. Yes, why they have not asked the question, that is a big question mark for me again, whether they have all listened or not listened, and they are all enjoying the students' life. I hope. Yes. Once they step into the company, they might realize that what they have missed it. Really, we have to say thanks to Sanjay. Then my one request from my side, whenever you are coming to Chennai, you have to visit us.
I am planning so many times.
Yeah, you are planning so. You plan one day, you just visit us.
Yeah, definitely. And
out of many times, you visit one time.
From past, okay, definitely this time. But some tips to the students I just want to give. First thing, It's not that hard to get a job in Microsoft. Trust me, there are so many openings flooded with that. Maybe as a fresher, it will be a bit of a challenge, but Microsoft is ready to hire anyone with 2.5 years plus experience. So if you get a job somewhere else as well, after 2.5 years, you can try for Microsoft. There is careers.microsoft site through which I tried there. So you can go there, and it doesn't mean you have to only apply for one job. It has a clear job description. Go through that, and you can apply for n number of. Trust me, I applied for 72 roles, out of which few came up. But you can keep on applying. It's not that it has to be one way or the other. And whenever you try for a product-based company, it is mostly the culture and the character that test more than the technical stuff that you know. Even in my case, when I was interviewing, I don't know anything about that technology. What they did was they gave me this technology and gave me 2 days to prepare and come and give a presentation, which got me the job. So always it's okay to apply for a technology that you don't know, but be prepared with what they're expecting through the job description. And trust me, a lot of people I have seen, and now there are like just in India, I think there are like almost 2,000 or 3,000 openings that are there in Microsoft for someone who is starting as a beginner level. So go through that, and if you anyone is interested, please feel free to reach out, and I will be happy to refer you or guide you through that.
One guy have raised the question: how hard is it to get into Microsoft without DSA? What is the DSA in the sense? What he wanted to without
What data
DSA?
science knowledge?
Yeah. In terms of what the Shartak,
Yeah,
data structures and algorithms. I thought it's
I was expecting this question. That's why I said I haven't written a single piece of code in past 4.5 years. So trust me, it is easy. See, again, as I said multiple times, because that's the norm. Everyone has that it is coding. No, it is not all coding. Only 20% is coding. There are a lot of jobs that doesn't require coding. So do not get worried. See, without coding, yes, you can survive, but without knowing knowledge and technology or the logic, it's hard. When you're giving an interview, see, most of the interview questions that they ask is not about the technology. If you go for a very technical role, obviously there will be technical questions more. But if you're going for an operational, they'll give you challenging scenarios on top of mind. Like when I go for an interview, they keep on asking questions based on the answers that I give. So it's mostly based on the scenarios if you're going for a DevOps role more than the technology. Yeah, again, you can get it. It's fine, sir. Sarthak, yeah.
Is there any job for us, Sanjay?
A lot of openings are there. Project manager role, lots and lots, always.
And by seeing you all and all, we have craze to just step into that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have again, we have a lot of openings. It's again in my project. I don't have an MBA or something. We do need project management MBA, but when I attended the interview, it's mostly the scenarios that they asked. They give on top of my scenarios. Let's say Wednesday you have to submit your project, and today your developer comes and says only 20% of the code is done. How you handle it? Let's take it's a Friday night. You won't have anyone if you ping also, if you reach out. So as a project manager, how are you going to handle? And again, there is no concrete answer to that. They just check how many ways you can try to give an answer. You can keep on answering, even though that's right or wrong. They just check how many ways you will be try to find a solution. So all my 8 interviews went like that. Again, one hard thing in Microsoft is they have 8 interviews or minimum 6 to 8 to clear, but that's how it happens. But all are scenario based, and it's very easy to attempt those scenarios if you know some logical thinking. Yes. Anyone else?
Yeah. Thanks, Sanjay. We are also hoping to get a chance over there.
Absolutely. Anyone else has any questions, or we are good to go?
No one, no one. Thank you for spending time with us, Sanjay. Okay, thanks a
Happy
lot.
to be there. Thank you all. Great day.
Thank you, sir.
See, participants, participant feedback link is in the chat box. You please submit it. Sanjay, thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you so much for the option.
Behind a busy schedule, you accepted our request, right?
Right,
So
for
thanks for
on-call as
that.
it's fine.